بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين. Let us make our intentions sincerely for the sake of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We were speaking about the sins of the different body parts, and we were speaking specifically about the sins of the body. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna al-basara, as was mentioned by Allah in the Quran, Inna al-basara wal-fu'ada, kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. Meaning that a person, he will be asked about all of those things that he actively engaged in when it comes to hearing things that are sinful, saying things that are sinful, likewise to looking at things that are sinful. He will be actively asked about those things, and he is responsible for all of these things. Excuse me. So the person, because he is responsible for all of these things, he needs to make sure that he is not looking, not listening, and not doing with his hands things that are not permissible. Because remember, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the owner of all of these organs. He owns your hand. And I mention this every so often just to put the matter into consideration, that the hand that you have, you don't own it. Rather, it is Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that owns it. Likewise, if you think about your eyes, your nose, your ears, all of these things. I mean, if you look at your hand right now, you look at the lines that are on it, you look at its complexion, you look at its shade, you look at maybe some hairs that are on the back and so on. This hand that has been with you all your life, you cannot claim to own it, because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is its creator and he is its actual owner. And so you have been given this hand, and then there were restrictions put upon what you can do with this hand and what you cannot do and what you have to do. Like, for example, to use it to pray, to perform a sajda, like to give your zakah, for example, and so on and so forth. Likewise, restrictions were put in place and obligations were put in place upon us so that we would abide. And hence, firstly, we would learn what is obligatory upon us, how we are to use these particular organs in obedience to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So it's good from time to time for a person to remember this issue, that what I have is a blessing from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and I would not be considered to be thankful of Allah for having given me these things if I use these things in disobedience to Allah. And this is why we go through mentioning the sins of the different body parts, the sins of the body, so that we can refrain from committing sins with these body parts, so that we can perform the obligations with these body parts, so that we would be obedient slaves of Allah, so that we would use that which Allah owns and that which Allah gave us in obedience to its creator. In obedience to its creator. This is why we are mentioning the sins of the different body parts. The next sin of the body is al-i'anatu ala al-ma'siyah, to aid people to commit sins. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Ta'awanu comes from the original three-letter root word al-awn. So you have ta'awanu, which comes from ta'awun, and the three letters, the etymological root of those three, or the three original letters are the ayn, the waw, and the noon, which means to help. Al-awn is al-musa'ada, to help. So al-i'ana, in this ayah is mentioned, we are ordered to ta'awanu, to help, to aid each other, to come together, to cooperate, ala al-birri wa taqwa, to cooperate when it comes to performing good deeds, when it comes to upholding the truth. Be an aid for each other. Don't be against each other. Help each other to do good by helping each other to perform the obligations, helping each other to stay away from the haram. Help each other as a community. Help each other as a couple, as a family, as an extended family. Help each other as a neighborhood, as a community. Help each other and be an aid for each other in doing good. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ. Al-birr is the good. And those that do good, the one that does good is bar, and those who do good are abrar. Al-abrar, like you have as-salihun, the pious, like this al-abrar. إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. That the abrar, the pious people, they will be in everlasting pleasure in paradise. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Aid each other in performing the obligations and doing good. And then it was mentioned in the Quran وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And do not aid each other in committing sins and in injustice. So here, subhanallah, it is fitting to mention that because Allah ordered us in the Quran to do good and help others to do good, and prohibited us from doing bad and helping others from doing bad, it is fitting to mention that if someone aids another person in committing a small sin, then this person that aids also commits a small sin. If somebody aids another person to commit a major sin, then this person also commits a major sin. They both commit a major sin. And if someone helps someone else to commit kufr, then this person also commits kufr. Both of them would have committed kufr. So this is whether that person who one is helping is a Muslim or a non-Muslim. So it doesn't matter if they are a Muslim or a non-Muslim. There is a consensus, an ijma', a scholarly agreement. All of this, the scholars, the considerable scholars, the mujtahids of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they said that there is an agreement upon the issue of it being haram for us to do the things that are prohibited as Muslims, and it is haram for even the non-Muslims to do those things. So if you find some, for example, pork, or you find some other haram meat that you know was not slaughtered properly, like, for example, some chicken, you know that it was, or meat, you know that it was not slaughtered properly. You can't say, look, let's go and give it to, John next door. Or let's go and give it to Julia, who lives 3 doors down. Let's give it to Craig. Let's give it to Tim. Let's give it to these people, for example, who are non-Muslims, right? If these people are non-Muslims, then it's not permissible for one to say, oh, we'll just give it to the non-Muslims. Why? Because what is haram upon us is also haram upon them. It is twisted for a person to believe otherwise. Because then look, what if someone says What if someone says, oh, wait a minute, if it's not haram upon them and it's haram upon us, and I want to do that thing, why didn't I just become a non-Muslim? If it's not haram for them and it's haram for us, why am I putting myself through, not eating this and all these rules? Why don't I just become a non-Muslim and it won't be haram on me then? That's just twisted. Wal-'iyadhu billah. So one is not allowed to aid others to commit sins, full stop. Okay? So if a Muslim is talking bad about another Muslim, okay, they're committing ghiba about them, saying something true that that person wouldn't like for it to be said behind their back, then you should not aid them in doing that. Don't egg them on, right? Also, if it's a non-Muslim who is talking bad behind another Muslim's back, you can't say, oh, chora ijrana ghair muslimana, or ghair muslima, sorry, that he's not a Muslim, so let him do what he wants. No, even him, you say to him, look, don't do that. Likewise, there are many situations in which, for example, if a Muslim says that, wal-'iyadhu billah, today at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock p.m., I'm going to go to one of these clubs and I'm going to drink and so on, then this is sinful. If he says, if he gets a taxi and that taxi driver is a Muslim, and this person says to that taxi driver, look, I want you to take me to such and such place because there I'm going to commit these sins. This taxi driver should not take him, because he would be helping him commit a sin. He is taking him to a place that he is going to commit sins at. He shouldn't say that, Emari Rosina Swala, it's just my rizq, like I'm just making money, I'm just taking person from A to B. Well, you're aiding him. The scholars, they talked about these issues a lot. They talked about these issues, about helping someone to commit sins. It is not something that is permissible. So this needs to be understood very well. Just because it is a non-Muslim person, that doesn't mean that it is okay for them to commit sins. Like, for example, some people might say that some people might have a shop, okay, and they sell meat, they sell crisps, they sell chocolate, they sell lots of things, and they also have, wal-'iyadhu billah, min sharri iblis wa shayatini kulliha, they have alcohol there. They sell beer, and they have intoxicants. Some ignorant people might say that, oh, but we're not selling it to the Muslims, like astaghfirullah, we're not selling it to the Muslims. Okay, good. They might say, well, we're only selling it to the non-Muslims. Yeah, but that's also not allowed. Yes, well done. Like, good that you're not selling it to the Muslims. That's really good. Actually, it's really, genuinely, that's really good. Okay? But at the same time, you're also not allowed to facilitate that for non-Muslims. Right? Because al-khamr is najis. It's najis, filthy. Al-khamr, alcohol. If someone has it on their clothing, let's say they have it in a great amount on their clothing, the prayer isn't valid. If they have it, for example, all the way down one side, the prayer isn't valid because it's filthy. And these things that are filthy, like blood, like urine, like al-khamr, like alcohol, these are considered najis, filthy. Like pus also. These are najis. Najis meaning they are filthy. And because they are filthy, they don't have a monetary value. They're not worth anything. They're not worth a penny. So that's one thing. That's a major sin to say, to actually try to supposedly sell alcohol. That's a major sin. And secondly, you're aiding a person to commit a sin. So because some people, and if this is, you, and you're listening to this, then you need to take heed that it's not an excuse for you to say that I am selling it to non-Muslims. It's not like I'm selling it to Muslims. A'udhu billah. It's not enough for you, because what is haram upon us, Muslims, it is also haram upon them. Okay? And think about all of the sins. Think about all of the sins that we've mentioned within the sins of the body parts, the sins of the private parts, the sins of the tongue, all of these things that are sinful upon Muslims, then they are sinful upon non-Muslims too. So to help a Muslim or a non-Muslim to do one of these haram things, you are sinful for that. You see, this law, the religious law, which is a sharia, which they sometimes incorrectly, they say sharia law. Sharia, this is a holy, this is a prestigious, a blessed law that Allah revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, mostly via Jibreel alayhi salam. And all of this law, these laws, they are universal. They apply to every accountable person. So they have to be baligh, they have to be pubescent, they have to be aqil, so they're not insane, and they've heard the call to al-Islam. So everybody who comes, and who comes under this category? Muslims and non-Muslims. So this law, it applies to all of those people. So what is haram upon us is also haram upon them. So if somebody, for example, has a store, a post office, a corner shop, and for example, they are selling lottery tickets, and this is haram, this is a type of gambling. This is aiding someone to use their money in something that they are not sure what's going to happen, because this is chance, and this is haram. When money is involved, it's called al-qimar, gambling. So that's not allowed. We know that's not allowed. Okay. Now, if someone has a shop and they're selling it to people, then it's not an excuse for them to say, but I'm selling it to non-Muslims. You're not supposed to sell it, full stop. You're not supposed to sell it, full stop. Okay? And like that, many other things. Many other things. Okay? What's more important is for you to obey Allah. This is more important than you earning money. Okay? Because you'll have people who will disobey Allah to earn money, or to acquire money, let's say, because they're not actually earning some of this money. It doesn't actually become theirs. It's haram money. And then this haram money, if they're not forgiven for these sins, this haram money will be wabalan alayhim yawm al-qiyamah. That this will be a reason for great torture that they will suffer on the day of judgment and in hellfire if they're not forgiven by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And some people won't be forgiven by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Some Muslims, they will go to hell for a while. We know this from the Quran. What is even worse is if a person aids a person to commit kufr. This is even worse. For a person to help another person commit kufr. Like, for example, if there is a person who one knows that he is a kafir, one knows that he is a non-Muslim. Now, is it, if one says, I am a Muslim, this is something good. If someone says, I am a Christian, what does that mean? It means I believe that God has a son, right? Somebody says, I am a kafir. What does that mean? It means I am a non-Muslim. Now, according to al-Islam, okay, according to what Allah mentioned in the Quran, is that allowed? The answer is no. Allah mentioned, وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. That Allah chose Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala accepted eternally and everlastingly by His eternal will al-Islam as a religion for humanity. وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمْ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. And whoever takes for himself a religion other than al-Islam, فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ, it will not be accepted from him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. In the hereafter he will be amongst the losers. إِنَّ الدِّينَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الْإِسْلَامِ. All of these are ayahs of the Quran, that the religion that is the one that is accepted by Allah is al-Islam. So if a person says, I don't believe in al-Islam, then this is actually sinful. Just like if someone was to swear at somebody else, at another Muslim, they swear at them unjustly, that's sinful. So if someone was to say that I am not a Muslim, it means to say that I reject al-Islam. I don't accept the Prophet. I don't accept Allah as God. And this is a great injustice. If someone says, I don't accept Allah as God, right? I don't accept the religion that Allah ordered me to follow. This is something that is a grave, grave, grave injustice. So this is a grave injustice. And this person who is already non-Muslim, he becomes more sinful by mentioning that statement. So if one of us knows that a person is a non-Muslim, then we should not help them to commit kufr. Like, for example, you see many of these people, subhanallah, ignorant people, in when they try to debate non-Muslims, you will see many of them, a lot of the those people who associate themselves with the Wahhabis and the so-called Salafis, when they speak to non-Muslims, these people will ask them questions that they know that those people will answer with something kufr. And because these people who claim to be Muslims also, because we know that the Wahhabiyah, they believe that Allah is in the sky like the Jews, and we are not Jews, we are Muslims. So the Wahhabiyah are not Muslims. The Wahhabis, these people, they will ask some of the non-Muslims questions that the Wahhabis know the answers to, and they know that the non-Muslims will give a kufr answer. So by them asking them this question and them replying with a kufr answer, these Wahhabiyah fall further into kufr. Like, for example, someone who we know is a Christian, right? Someone who we know believes that Jesus is the Son of God. We don't say to him, so you're a Christian, yeah? If a person knows, if a person actually knows that this person is a Christian, so say, oh yeah, remember, but you're a Christian, yeah? Like that. Or if a person has said that I'm a Christian, and then another person comes along and he knows that he said that, and then he says to him, oh yeah, so you're a Christian, like that. Not that he's asking because he doesn't know, he just heard him say he's a Christian. And then he asks him, so are you a Christian? And then the Christian says yes, and he commits kufr by that. He falls further and further into his sinfulness, into his blasphemy. So we're not allowed to help others to commit sins. We're not allowed to help others to commit kufr. So the Muslim should not ask a question which he knows that the one answering will give a kufr answer. This is if a person knows. If a person knows that the answer that is going to be given is a kufr answer. So what can you ask instead? If you want to know, if you want to get a rough idea of the religion of that person, what's the question you could ask? You could say, what is the religion of your father? Right? So if he says what the religion of his father is, like he might say, oh, my father's a Hindu, right? Now here, he's just informing. It's not like he is committing a sin by informing you that his father is a Hindu. He's just saying, my father's a Hindu, right? Just by saying that, he's informing. So he himself, by saying that, hasn't committed a sin. So you haven't made him commit a sin. But if you knew that this person was a Hindu, you knew it, you're 100% sure. It's not just you think, no, you know because he's told you. Then you don't ask him things like, so, yeah, and you know, you're a Hindu, aren't you? Like that. To which he would say, yes, you've made him commit kufr now. You knew that he was going to say that, and then you prompted him to say kufr. You've committed kufr now as well. So it's important for a person to watch his tongue, especially when trying to debate other people. Especially when trying to debate other people. This requires a lot of religious knowledge, and it requires a lot of caution. And remember, this is not if you don't know. This is not if you don't know. If a person doesn't know what the religion of the other person is, and they ask them, so are you, for example, they say, are you a Muslim? Or they might say, for example, are you such and such religion? And they don't know that they're going to answer with a kufr answer. This person, he would not commit kufr. But we're talking about the scenario in which a person knows with 100% certainty that that person is a kafir. And then he asks him a question that prompts him to commit kufr. He's aided him in committing kufr. And Allah mentioned, وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And don't aid each other in committing sins. Don't aid each other in committing al-zulm, which is injustice. And kufr is the greatest injustice. The greatest right that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has upon his slaves is that they do not worship other than him, i.e. that they do not commit kufr. So it is important for a person to not fall into this. And it's important for a person to put this in the foreground. I'll give you another example. Imagine you're on the plane or on a plane, okay? And you've ordered the cabin crew have come around and they've brought orange juice and Pepsi and everything. And you've asked for some Coca-Cola. So you're sitting on the aisle seat and there's another person, whoever it is, Muslim, non-Muslim, whoever, okay, man or woman, and they've got the window seat and they ask for some alcohol. So now you're not allowed to aid them or facilitate for them to drink this alcohol. So you can't have this person who's part of the cabin crew pass it to you and then you pass it on. No, don't do that. Because you would be aiding them in committing that sin. You can't just say, oh, just passing it them for what? Do you not know that this is a disobedience? Do you not know that by this person is disobeying Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala? What someone might say, oh brother, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Like, it's a bit awkward, isn't it? Well, you say to them, look, I'm not going to aid people drinking alcohol, or I don't agree with it, or my religion says, or pretend you're asleep. Pretend you drank the Coca-Cola and it just did you, it knocked you out. Or just say, no, I'm not going to. Can you pass that on? No. You're not going to pass it on. Is it the end of the world? You will have stayed away from a sin. And this is very, 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 very rewardable. That you had the guts you had the bravery to stay away from that sin. Many people, they would just, sink into their seat and say, oh yeah, I'll pass it on. And just pass it on. Allah is being disobeyed. Why would you accept that? Later on, you can mention it to that person. You start a conversation. Say, I don't accept. You could even go about it in the way of saying that alcohol is very, very, it is destructive. I believe that it is something that on a wider scale, it causes much of the dysfunction in society because people don't solve their problems. They go to the bottom. You could go on and on and on. And these things are true. It's not like, you're just blending it. No, these things are actually true. That's one example. For example, you're at the supermarket and you're looking through the freezer for, I don't know, vegetable rolls or something. And an old lady comes to you and says to you, can you pass me that ham? Or can you pass me that pork or those sausages, which it's going to be meat and it's going to be haram. Then you don't say, oh yeah, I'll pass it you. Don't play what some people might call the gentleman card. Oh, I'll pass it you. No. This is something that is not permissible. Then people ask me, what are we supposed to say? Or say that, no, I can't. Pretend you didn't hear her. Oh, whatever. Just say, look, this is not something that you should be eating, for example. Or they will get it themselves. But you see, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min, which means that wisdom is that thing which the perfect Muslim should look for, that he looks for in everything. So do things in a wise way. Be prepared for these situations. Why is it? So someone might say, well, why are these situations coming up? Like, why are we having to do that? That's because the Prophet ﷺ said that a time would come in the future when holding on to the rules of the religion, implementing them, okay, will be like holding on to a burning coal. It's hard. Yes, sometimes the situation might feel like it's awkward, but you don't want to commit a sin and you don't want to disobey Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, so you have to get your way out of it sometimes. And for that, if you do it for the sake of Allah, you would be very rewardable. You would be rewarded, It would be very, very rewardable. So I know we've only spoken about one sin today, which was al-i'anatu ala al-ma'siyah, helping someone else to sin, but this is important because this covers so many sins. And remember, to help someone commit a small sin is a small sin. To help someone commit a major sin is a major sin. And to help someone commit kufr is also is kufr. And we'll stop there today. Walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammad, Rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.